You know, there are some things in life we just accept without a second thought. The sky is blue, gravity works, and, well, the government runs things like the police, the roads, and the post office. But what if that last one isn't a law of nature at all? What if it's just a habit? Today, we're going to try and break that habit with a pretty cool thought experiment.
Just think about the phone you're probably holding right now. It's an absolute marvel of technology that didn't even exist a couple of decades ago. In almost every part of our lives, we demand constant improvement. But when it comes to some of our most basic, essential services, it feels like our thinking is kind of stuck in the past, locked in these unquestioned habits.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? Why do we just assume that certain things have to be run by the government? You know, police, roads, the mail. We just think, well, yeah, of course. It feels totally normal, like it couldn't be any other way. And that feeling of normalcy, it's incredibly powerful. The state is so baked into these jobs that if you even question who provides the service, it sounds like you're attacking the service itself. It's a mental rut, and it is deep. So, how do we climb out of that rut and get a totally fresh perspective?
Well, this is where we get to have a little fun with our imagination, and this is where the idea of the government shoe store comes into play.
Okay, so picture this, a world where, for as long as anyone can remember, the only place you can get shoes is from the Federal Department of Footwear. It's a total monopoly, it's funded by taxes, and it's the only reality people have ever known. Now, what do you think would happen if someone stood up and said, hey, what if we let private companies try making and selling shoes?
It would be chaos, immediate panic. People would start asking all these questions. Who would even make the shoes? How would we make sure they're safe? Wouldn't we need a whole shoe regulation agency? And oh my gosh, what about the poor? Who's going to give them shoes? But hold on a second. Listening to those questions right now, in our world, they sound completely absurd, don't they? And that's because we already have the answers.
The reason those questions sound so silly to us is because we live in a world where markets provide the answers. It's a world built on a very simple principle. The customer is king. And this is the real magic of a market system. You don't need some central committee in a boardroom trying to solve all these problems, because every single one of those panic questions isn't a problem at all. It's a massive business opportunity. A need for affordable shoes? That's a huge market. A demand for safer, higher quality shoes? That's a chance for a brand to build its entire reputation.
So it all boils down to this. In private business, this one simple motto drives everything. If you want to stay in business, you have to serve your customers well, and you have to do it at a price they're willing to pay. Your survival literally depends on it.
And this creates this amazing, powerful, virtuous cycle. Companies compete for your business. That competition forces them to innovate and get more efficient. That leads to better products that are also cheaper. And the companies that do the best job of serving you are the ones that succeed. The whole system is designed for constant improvement. But what happens when you take that core incentive away? What does that picture look like?
Because when you flip the model, when you go from a private business to a government operation, the entire dynamic just turns on its head. The motto is no longer the customer is king. It becomes something very, very different.
Okay, so here is the fundamental difference, what some have called the fatal split. A government agency gets its money from taxes. That source of income is totally disconnected from whether or not you, the customer, are happy with the service. The funding keeps coming, whether you're satisfied or not. They don't have to earn your business, and they can't go out of business. This one single fact flips the entire script.
And this comparison just lays it all out, clear as day. A private company sees a huge surge in demand, and they are thrilled. It's a chance to grow, to make more money. They can't wait to expand to meet that demand. But a government agency facing that same surge? Well, often they see the customer as an annoyance, as someone who's wasting their limited resources. Their first instinct isn't to expand, it's to tell you to use less. The customer goes from being right to being the problem.
Let's make this real. We've all been there, right? Stuck in traffic on a government-run road. What happens? Do they rush to build more roads to meet the demand? Almost never. Instead, what do we hear? We hear that the problem is all of us, for having the nerve to drive our cars. The problem isn't their failure to supply the roads, it's you for wanting to use them.
Or, how about this one? The same pattern shows up with water. A city-run water system can't keep up with demand during a dry spell. Does the city blame itself for not having enough supply? No.
It blames you for using too much water and starts banning you from watering your lawn or washing your car. And this last example is, well, it's a powerful one. A public park becomes dangerous because of crime. So what's the bureaucratic solution? A curfew. I mean, just stop and think about that. The answer isn't to go after the criminals to make the park safe. The answer is to threaten to arrest the law-abiding citizen who just wants to take a walk after dark. The provider shifts the entire burden onto the innocent user.
So on top of all these messed up incentives, there's an even deeper, more fundamental issue going on. It's something economists call the calculation problem.
So what on earth is economic calculation? Okay, think of it like this. In a market, prices aren't just random numbers. They're signals packed with information about how much of something there is and how much people want it. Businesses use those price signals to figure out their costs and their profits, which tells them if they're using resources efficiently or just wasting them. It's basically the economy's navigation system.
But inside a government monopoly, that whole navigation system just breaks down. I mean, by definition, there's no competition. And with no competition, you don't get real market prices. And without prices, you have no way to know if you're making a profit or a loss. You're basically flying blind. This is why a government service can't ever truly be run like a business. It's missing the compass it needs to make smart decisions, creating what economists call islands of calculational chaos, black holes in the economy that are just fundamentally unmanageable.
So, when you put all of this together, from our little thought experiment with the shoe store all the way to this deep economic problem, it leaves us with one last and pretty provocative question.
And that's where this thought experiment leads us. The same competitive market forces that put a literal supercomputer in your pocket and 1,000 different kinds of shoes in the mall. Well, what if they could be applied elsewhere? The point here isn't to have all the answers. It's to be brave enough to ask the question. If we trust the market with the most complex and important technologies in our lives, what exactly are we so afraid it can't handle? And is that fear really based on evidence, or is it just another unquestioned habit?